Hello?
Oh, sorry, I was having a connection issue myself. Wait a second.
Okay. So shall we start the program?
Hello, can you see me well? Am I properly audible?
Yes, good.
Super.
So shall we start the program, Jin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please. Yes.
So Dhanashili?
The only way to do great work is to love what you do. It's not what you do that matters, but what you do it for that really matters. Warm greetings, Vanakkam, Namaskar, Annyeonghaseyo to everyone attending the workshop today. I hope everyone present is safe and healthy. I am Dhanasili G, a final year student of the Department of International Law and Organization from School of Excellence in Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, and I will be serving you as the moderator for this international workshop on Introduction to Air Law. I would like to thank the technical team, our patron, Professor Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. N.S. Santhosh Kumar, our convener, Professor Dr. Kumudar Ratna ma'am, and our student coordinators for making this webinar possible. Before we proceed into the event, I would like to place on record a few instructions for I kindly request all the participants to disable their video and mute themselves throughout the session to ensure the uninterrupted flow. We will be having a question and answer round towards the end of the session. Any questions to the esteemed resource person can be raised in the chat box, and Mr. Alex Abraham, who's our student coordinator, will take over that session. The feedback form will be made available at the end of this session. Feel free to contact us through the mail ID which is provided in the brochure. And also, this webinar will be live streamed on the TNDALU YouTube channel. Certificate of participation will be issued only to the participants who have registered themselves for the workshop. Fill the feedback form in the end of this session. Without much ado, let us proceed into the program. As we unite here as the academic community, we can rightfully educate ourselves upon the topic on the introduction to air law from one of the finest resource person, Ms. Jinyoung Choi from the International Institute of Air and Space Law, Leiden University, Netherlands. We welcome you, madam. The program director for our event, Professor Dr. Kumudar Ratna, director in charge of postgraduate courses and head of the Department of Business Law, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, is an ideal example for being both a dignified academician as well as an exemplary administrator. As one of her students, I am of the opinion that somebody who excels in a professional capacity whilst maintaining such humility and patience such as herself should be the kind of person I aspire to be in order to able to make a difference. It would take me the whole day and I would have still not told enough about the inevitable abilities that ma'am possesses. I now invite you, ma'am, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Dhanashili. A very pleasant evening to one and all here. Usually it will be a pleasant morning or afternoon. So this is the first time we are having a program in the evening. And first of all, I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. Welcome and thank, because it is because of the impetus and the freedom that our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, has given us, that we are able to organize so many programs. Every time, we think of organizing a program, we have no hesitation that it will be immediately permitted, and all facilities will be given. A very respectful and humble welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. And nextly, our Professor Jinyoung Choi. A very gracious welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation and in a short notice, allowing us to organize this program. And in this time, I would like to thank our alumnus, Deepika Jayakodi. She is the person who introduced me to Jinyoung Choi, and she helped me organize this program. Thank you very much, Deepika. I believe you are here somewhere. And I would like to welcome our registrar, Professor Dr. Ranjit Omen Abraham, because of his, doing all the helps, whatever it is, that we are able to immediately get the proposal sanctioned and move forward. A very bright welcome to our Dean, Professor Dr. Balaji sir. And because of Balaji sir being our Dean, we are having total freedom to organize so many programs. This is one of the, great pillars of Tendalo, I would say. Dr. Balaji sir, a warm welcome to you. And also a welcome to Dr. Bhuneshwari, my good friend. And she is also one of the organizers of this program, being the head of the International Law Department. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. And also a very Sunny welcome to our Controller of Examinations, Dr. Srinivasan sir. And I welcome the Director of Research, Publications and Academic Affairs, Professor Dr. Harita Devi ma'am. She is also a member of our Business Law Department, and she is one of the strengths of this department, and also she is heading the Department of Environmental Law. A very pleasant welcome to you, ma'am. Welcome to our directors of the UG. We have 5 courses and 5 directors, and I welcome each one of you. And also a very friendly welcome to all the heads of the 11 departments. I would say 12 and 13 departments, including the interdisciplinary and library. A welcome to you all. And also, I welcome our dear students from here, our institution, and also from the 17 plus affiliated colleges, which are government law colleges within the state of Tamil Nadu, and also students who might have registered from other parts of India. A very warm welcome. All these programs, we make the effort of organizing in order to motivate and inspire you to reach higher, levels, and also to scale heights and do PhD and all that. That is why we are introducing you to different platforms. A very welcome to you, a very happy welcome to you all, I would say. And also, I welcome the technical team of our institution, which is headed by librarian sir, and he is also the director of campus, Dr. Ashok sir. Mr. Darwin, Mr. Joy, all of them. Because of Mr. Darwin and team, every time we are having a smooth relay of all the online programs. A very warm welcome, a very pleasant welcome to each one of you. I hope this program is very enlightening to all of us regarding air law. And again, I welcome and thank our resource person, our keynote speaker, Professor Jinyoung Choi. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dhanashili.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your commencing words. Now I invite Professor Dr. Bhuvaneshwari D, Director in charge of undergraduate courses, and our beloved and learned Head of the Department of International Law and Organization, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, to explain the theme of this workshop. We are honored to have you here, ma'am. I would like to hand over the rostrum to Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dhanasili. A very pleasant good evening to all present in this international workshop on the topic Introduction to Air Law. As PG Director Dr. Kumar Madam told, I welcome everyone and I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor for giving permission for both the departments to join hands to conduct an area of concern which is going to be explored in today's workshop. And the sincere effort taken by the PG Director, Dr. Kumar, I have to thank her. I would like to use this forum to thank her. The role assigned to me is to spell out the theme of the workshop. As we all know, the purpose and object of existence of international law is maintenance of peace and security among community of nations. Air law is also one such branch, as I would like to quote here. It would be more pertinent if I quote here to note President Roosevelt's observation to the opening plenary session of Chicago Convention 1944, where he was talking about the purpose of existence of air law. As we begin to write a new chapter in the fundamental law of the air, let's all remember that we are engaged in a great attempt to build enduring institutions of peace. These peace settlements cannot be endangered by petty considerations or weakened by groundless fears. Rather, with full recognition of sovereignty and judicial equality of all nations, let us work together so that the air may be used by humanity, essentially to serve humanity. So the purpose of existence of law is to serve the humanity. The Chicago Convention, as I mentioned earlier, 1944, it has set forth the essential principles of international air law, as every one of us know, because basically in UG we have studied about air law. It helped to develop, keeping in mind the global community's expectations as well. It is considered to be the charter of world aviation as well, Prominently, we have international organizations also when we come for the regulatory purpose. The International Civil Aviation Organization and IATA, they regulate aviation industry. But a great degree of uniformity is needed in national laws to enable mass air transport operate across national boundaries without delay. One of the setbacks of nations' sovereignty in terms of airspace is the development into globalization era. International air transportation is one of the most policed sector within the industrial world in globalization era. Traditionally, this sector has been regulated by Chicago Convention 1944. But the new era of globalization brought the initiative to open and liberate the air transportation. The new order, what do you call to be the multilateral system, flight substitute the bilateral system of airspace law and aim the liberty of international air transport service to all countries as their main object. So definitely, the economic aspect of airspace sovereignty, it is going to or tend to dominate in the future. The pros of laissez-faire will actively advocate the freedom of airspace and free competition. The challenges occurred during the evolution process of airspace sovereignty. It does not only come from economic aspect, but also from many other factors like environmental as well, along with the evolution of nations' sovereignty, which is developed based upon or got evolution based upon international laws growth. So this workshop is meant to answer all those perplexities, as we should remember the words of Justice Krishna here, the golden words to be remembered, combining history with new values, new policies, new perspectives, new conventions in super aviation makes a contribution to legal futurology. Let us remind these words forever. And let me stop here with the theme that has been that the task I have been given to, and the keynote speaker Jinyoung Choi will enlighten us further. Thank you all for the opportunity given.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for explaining the theme of today's workshop. Now I invite Professor Dr. Haritha Devi Or, Director in Charge, Research Publications and Academic Affairs, and Head of the Department in charge of the Department of Environmental Law and Legal Order. We are happy to have you here, ma'am, and it's an honor to invite you to deliver the felicitation address. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity at the outset. I think I must tell that this is a very, very vibrant topic. At the same time, this topic is very much needed because all through the world, many countries are speaking about what to do or how to proceed with. So air law becomes a very, I would say, current topic, not only for international law students, it is for all of us, because as Department of Business Law, I feel today trade is actually governing all countries. Trade has, it's always controlling the entire thing, but every time it is an issue when it comes to air through trade through air, or how it can be proceeded with, how countries should sit across the table and solve the issues. So in that regard, as my role is to felicitate everyone who has participated in this, I would like to thank the professor from, Jim Choi ma'am, for having joined us, taken the time to give her expertise to our students, especially to our LLM students, as well as to our UG, PG and all our teachers. So we are all eager to hear you, ma'am. And I must really congratulate Dr. Kumar ma'am for having taken all the steps to bring such a vibrant scholar to all of us to proceed with this thing. So I definitely thank everyone for giving me this opportunity, and I wish all success for this program, so that we all are useful and we get all updated information. I also request all the students who have joined here to keep up and take this opportunity and learn new things. Hope we will have a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank you, one and all. We'll proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I invite Professor Dr. Balaji B., Dean of Faculties and Head of the Department in charge for the Department of Maritime Law, Dr. Tamil Nadu Ambedkar Law University, who continues to inspire us with his tenacity, and we are fortunate to have you here, sir, and it's an honor to invite you to deliver the felicitation address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you for introducing me. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible.
Thank you, Madam. HOD of the Department of International Law, Madam Bonashri, Madam. The Director PG Studies, Dr. Kudaratna, Madam. And the Director Research and Publication, Dr. Harita Devi, Madam. And all my other colleagues, the Registrar, Controller of Examination, all the other directors of the School of Excellence in Law, and Jinyoung Choi, the person who is going to give the lecture. I think she's available right now. Okay, fine.
Available, yes.
Thank you, welcome. Yeah, so Madam, there are two things. One is, in fact, Vice Chancellor is busy in another meeting, and a scheduled meeting which is being going on. So he made me to talk on behalf of him, as well as I am also felicitating this program, where this is one of my pet subject, where I taught this air law, the civil aviation law, to the students of international law, and I love this subject where I have come across many nuances. The upcoming law, there is two things what I usually tell students. One is about the civil aviation, the air law, and the maritime law. These two things are now actually, where India is in a pace of the development, and it is making its global presence, where its resources are aplenty, and where it can decide the market. That is the position in which India and China happen to be in that race right now. Now, in the same sense, the air law is also most important, where from the beginning, as my HOD was rightly pointing out, the Chicago Convention was the starting point, but the 5 freedoms of air, which in fact has come out with a lot more freedoms, which has been added in the later point of time, has really strengthened the air law, and which has made the citizens or the individuals to happily to travel from one place to another without any chaos. Now, that is what exactly it started. But however, there are some nitty-gritties, and there are certain other aspects which have been come on the way, where slowly the development of the air law also took place in a different dimension, where the ICAO, with their members, the ATA, the agreement with other countries, and also seen very many such things. And the legal issues also prompted them to go for several conventions in order to find out what is the remedy. Say, for example, there are some thoughts or the safety, the protection given to the consumers. You also see to be as a consumer. And there are several dimensions to the air law, the civil aviation, which has made really dynamic working of the countries across the world, and they have come to a common agenda or the conclusion to see that there is no problem for the commuters, or the free trade should not be affected. The both are coming on those aspects, but more we concern about the passengers aspect towards that. So in that sense, it has made its mark in the history of the civil aviation, where India is one of the important partners in the world, where India is now having much number of say when it compared to this understanding of these agreements. But however, the whole thing was took aback in the recent COVID situation. The things have been turned, topsy-turvy, where they could have seen that there was a complete stoppage of the movement of air traffic. And in fact, I was just following all these aspects. I have found out that the ultimate sector which bore the brunt is the civil aviation in this COVID situation. So perhaps the losses could be in some trillions. That was exactly been, I'm not magnifying, but those things have happened where several people have lost they have given the business to someone else, but they could not able to clear the debt. The fuel prices have been going up. That is also one of the concern. And so many things are there. But ultimately, at the end of the day, now what we are seeing is slowly the things have been turning down where the people have started using. And even in today's newspaper, the day before yesterday newspaper, the India as domestic travel itself is considered to be the most, the income what has been coming. So such a traveling has been taking place from the people from India to abroad, abroad to India, and within India. Now this has been happening on one aspect. Now in the other aspect, so to see that the people, the common man can also fly. So it was indeed a dream for many to travel when a flight. So that was also possible in a later point of time where the regulations have come to that level where they have given or chosen a concept called as low-cost carrier. So the low-cost carrier also came in between where they have made possible for the common man to in fact to go to the plane, I mean traveling through the plane and enjoying the benefits that whatever that has been given to others. So that is also on the other side what we have seen the growth. So and in the international and other aspects, that is not the only area which has been covered. It is, as I said, it's a various multi-dimensional activities that has been going on, where it touches upon the regulations or the legal aspects of many countries. So when a flight takes place from A to B and it crosses many such countries, now it has to cross through many such regulations also. So that is also now made possible, and through this convention, other things which has been made, so many regulations in that aspects. So the contract law has to play, a tort law has to play, a consumer law has to play, employment, the labor activities has to be there, criminal law has to work out, commercial law, competition law, and other separate, the very big area, one such in civil aviation about the international carriage by air or the air trade. That is one aspect. Then airline operations becomes more cumbersome, where you can see that there are two kinds of things. One is within the ground staff, the airport, other things have been concerned with the safety and other regulation is concerned. And once the aircraft that has been taken, I mean, started flying, the board, the aboard, the aboard, the crew, the captain, they have the set of rules and regulations, the air traffic that controls from different countries, maintenance of this organization, aviation security, airport operations, air traffic management, safety and accident management and investigation of the civil aviation, environmental aspects due to civil aviation, and there are so many other things. And interestingly, the things have been still continuing, and people are now, that is, of course, that's another part, the space, where we have a demarcation between the air and the space. But however, the airspace, the space has begun its journey, and it has now seen a thing called as space tourism. So it has grown to that level on the other part of it. So I think this is the bird's eye view that what I have given, and I don't want to take much time. Where I think the person Jinyoung Choi would be the right person to throw more light on that, the introduction on the air law, and Madam, and the VC has given sent his message, giving congratulations to all the people who have organized, the resource person Jinyoung Choi, and welcoming once again for this program. And in fact, it is we are expecting great to hear from you, Madam. For I once again thanks everyone on behalf of the Vice Chancellor and on behalf of myself for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I would love to introduce our chair for today's workshop. For the chair is Jinyoung Choi, and Madam's childhood is filled up by relocation learning dialects and new cultures. Thank you to her father, who was a military helicopter pilot in South Korea. This entire experience influenced her to be relocated to the Netherlands and choose to study air and space law and Dutch, which led her to where she is now. With educational background and her own passion in aviation and space, she is currently lecturer at the International Institute of Air and Space Law, Leiden University in the Netherlands, an R&D consultant at the Royal Netherlands Aerospace Center, while writing her PhD research project on criminal liability, and an alumna of the IIASL and the International Space University. Additionally, she also translates children's books written in Dutch into Korean. Without much ado, I would like to pay way for our resource person for today, Ms. Jinyoung Choi, to educate and enlighten the inquisitive gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction and all the nice welcoming addresses to all the directors and all the colleagues at the university there. Am I properly audible to everyone here?
You're audible,
Yes, ma'am.
Would you
Good.
like us to play your presentation, or would you be doing that?
I think it's better if I
Start
play it here.
Start
Is that
it. I
okay?
think this will be okay for you.
Yes. No, I think I can start it here because I added a
Okay,
few
that'll be good.
slides. Yeah, is it okay?
Yeah,
I'll
thank
do
you.
that. No, thank you very much for asking the questions. Okay, let me share this here. Let me get it. This. Can you see my slides?
Yes,
Or are you
ma'am.
seeing something else?
Yeah, we are able to see, but if you can make it as full screen, yeah. Perfect. Thank
Is
you.
it better? Yes. Whoops. I think my thing is not working properly. Wait a second. I'm sorry for this technical glitch. It happens always to me. Okay, I need to have it here. Um, yes. Can you see it? Is it good? Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for everyone for welcoming me. And then I'm glad to be invited to talk about introduction to air law. And then as I learned just from the welcoming addresses and from the introduction, I understood that we have a lot of guests today that are part of the audience that are not only scholars, but also academicians and also a lot of students who know about international law and who do not know about international law and also about air law. So I am going to talk about introduction about air law, although a lot of colleagues have already explained thoroughly about what the air law would mean in the international society. I'll try to deliver something might be new, and then something might be also interesting for your future career and also future studies as well. And before I start, I would like to ask a few things. Please ask questions like our moderator has indicated earlier. You can type it in or you can send it to the moderator so that, and then at the end of today's session, I'll also indeed have a Q&A session. So you can ask questions at that point as well. And last but not least, before I properly start, if I speak too quick, please let me know because I tend to speak quickly if I get too excited about the topic. And I hope you understand me properly with the proper pronunciations and enunciations. So please let me know. So yes, today I was given a chance to talk about air law, what the air law means. And it's a very interesting subject, but personally to me, so I wanted to make it also very easy for everyone by talking about basics indeed, and then what it means in international law, and also about situations that where you might get in, such as safety and security. Is my flight safe and secure? And what if you lose your, you couldn't get on board the airplane on time? What happens then? And is there any role that air law can play there? And what if you lose your luggage? So we are also going to talk about that. And also these days we have some passengers that might be a little bit aggressive in the airplane. And does air law do something about that? So we are also going to talk about it. And also at the very last, we'll also talk about if aviation is clean, because indeed, sustainability and environmental aspects of aviation is also very important. So for about an hour of time, we'll not be able to discuss everything in air law, what it means. However, at least at the end of the session and at the end of this workshop, I hope we can think of what we can do using air law in your career development and also in your future studies, and when you are in the troubles while you're flying. So let us just talk about the flight volumes. So this is actually the statistics that is gathered by Airbus, this manufacturing company of aircraft in 2019, which was before COVID. And even then, the traffic was actually increasing drastically. And then the traffic is forecast to grow at 4.3% at that time. And what they were expecting was at the end of at the end of the year of 2040, about the 2040, then we will have about 30 more percent of 30 times more pilots to operate the aircraft, which is actually a very big number, which represents that traffic volume is increasing throughout the years. So by doing, it means we would like to fly more and more. And why is that? Maybe it is very convenient to fly because it brings you to one place to another very quickly. And also it's just nice experience to fly. I think that explains everything because people would like to do something nice. And then, as we know, the first experience of heavier than air aircraft made by man was developed by Wright brothers. And they were flying, as you can see, they couldn't fly too long, and this was their motto. But people were very happy. And then you can see that in the picture, they are just shaking their heads with the happiness that it happened, it succeeded. So it was very nice experience to the humans and for all of us that we could finally fly using this flying machine, which sort of became normal in our life and something usual, but it wasn't the case in the past. And of course, we have to think about people who do not want to fly because they're fearing, but let's say a lot of people still would like to fly. And what is flying and what is aviation? It is, I check my dictionary just to check what it actually means because we know what it is, but still, it's just nice to see about the literal definition as lawyers. And in the Oxford Dictionary, it says flying is moving rapidly through the air. And then when it comes to bird and insects, it is giving an example about that. It is flying rapidly, moving rapidly through the air using wings. And then it also says using an aircraft and spacecraft. So this is really talking about our colleagues who said about the spacecraft and space tourism, which became something new because back in the time, or in the past rather, when spacecraft was not really nearing our life, the definition of flying was mentioning only the aircraft. So it also means that aviation law or air law or aviation itself is really, is really sensitive to new technologies. And then that is really reflected in the literal definition of what flying means. And the picture that we saw earlier is the first sustained flight by a manned heavier than air powered and controlled aircraft. And when was that happen? In December of 1903. So that's already how many years ago? About 1 century ago, because we are already, more than 1 century ago already. So that's been some time since human beings could fly using the machine that is made by man, and that is also heavier than air, powered and controlled by humans. And I have just have this little link about civil aviation of Department of Civil Aviation in the government of India. And I don't know if I can actually show you what it means. Let me share the little link that I have here. Yes. So if you go to the website of Ministry of Civil Aviation, we can already see what it means in India and how big the traffic volumes would be. Because, yesterday on 27th, how many flights were departing? And you can see that numbers are already growing pretty quickly. And that's over 2,000 and about, 2,600 flights. So that is pretty big. And how many people are we carrying in that flight? You can see the number. I wouldn't even read it myself. And then you have in India pretty many flights arriving and arriving passengers, and the movement of aircraft itself is also pretty big. So this means that indeed in India, just like any other countries in the world, you're influenced by aviation and then by the international traffic, and it takes a big part of our lives. And I am going back to the slides again. Yes. Yeah. So here you can see, what flying actually means. So we are thinking of actually here, this is little beluga aircraft that one of your seniors, Deepika Jayakuri, who introduced me to your university, favors. This is one of the biggest aircraft in the world, and cargo aircraft actually. And this is what we think that what makes aviation these days, because we are taking these flights. But then air law is not only applicable to these type of aircraft, but also about the balloons. This is a picture that I got from online. And this is about this air balloons that are very famous in Turkey, Cappadocia. And then people used to also glide without any power. This is paragliding back in the time. And then from one of the artists back in the time, he was already also, Da Vinci was drawing this and then developing this aircraft. And even kite is actually part of aviation. And then also this air balloon, airship in Paris back in the time is also part of aviation. And these are actually what makes air law very interesting, because we are not only discussing one machine itself, but there are multiple machines that are applicable and that are governed by this specialized law called air law or aviation law. So today we are going to actually use the term air law and aviation law interchangeably, just to make it easier to understand. So we just saw what makes aviation. And then as you can see, you might have already realized that or noticed that I love checking dictionaries when discussing topics. And what is aviation? I checked that in Oxford Dictionary again, it says designing and building and flying of aircraft is aviation. And then also from the welcoming addresses, we heard that aviation is domestic, but also very international. And why is that? Because aircraft is moving very quickly. So it is actually crossing the border very easily and very quickly for that matter. And it's a very big business, because you could also see that already the domestic flight numbers within India was pretty big. So if we are seeing the international flights as just massive business in the world, And yeah, earlier we also heard that, what is it? Yeah, how many percent of the Indian economy is relying on the aviation is just so big. And also very technical and complex, because what makes, we need to design and build and fly the aircraft. Like, how we have to be a bit imaginary. How difficult would it be? Like, we have this iron machine or aluminum machine that is flying. Just to make it fly is like magic. So it must be very technical and complex. But also we have to think about how risky it would be. And despite how safe it is, because we have very little number of accidents comparably to the past, and the machines are rarely malfunctioning these days, still we sometimes worry about the risks of accidents. So what makes aviation is all these characteristics next to designing and building and flying of aircraft. Then now we just talk about what is air law then, although we talked about it earlier. And an air law is indeed a body of rules governing use of airspace, because in order to fly, you need to use the airspace. And then it's also about like governing benefits out of use the airspace and flying the aircraft for aviation itself, the industry, and then traveling public like us, and undertakings and the nations of the world. So it's basically about us and what is making that aviation, that is individuals like us and organizations where people are working on, for instance, airlines or airlines or air traffic services providers. And we have states, member states of ICAO. We'll talk about it later. We have countries, nations such as India or South Korea, where I am originally from, or the Netherlands. And indeed, international organizations like International Civil Aviation Organization, so-called ICAO. And that is what makes aviation as a whole. Then we can think of, as we are all lawyers and we are all students, we've ever been students, and as we are learning, we're all students anyway in life. So what is sources of air law? We earlier talked about Chicago Convention. So indeed, that is one of the multilateral conventions. And then bilateral and other international air services agreements. So through deregularization, also which was referred to during the welcoming addresses, that some services are bilateral, so countries have to make their own agreement about the number of flights, for instance. And even internationally, people can just, governments can make air services agreement. So this is regulating how many numbers of flights can fly to one country or another, and what type of flights, indeed these freedoms, like whether you can stop in one country while going to another place. And then these are mentioned in this specific document called Air Services Agreement, which is also part of air law. And we indeed have general principles of international law, such as, we trust that everyone is acting sincerely and according to the literal definition of what is written in law. So for instance, these general principles are used in air law as well, or principle of legality, which is also about my PhD topic. Law has to be clear, and then punishment has to be written. So these are also part of air law, so we need to think about that as well. And then international aviation organizations make norms. And what are these norms? We'll discuss it later. And national laws and regulations. So as an instance, laws in India, domestic laws and regulations are part of air law as well. And of course, we shouldn't forget about the judicial decisions, what courts might have sat, and regional arrangements as to which see the European Union and other regional regimes. Regional regimes as in, for instance, in Asian and Southeast Asia area, they have ASEAN. And ASEAN and EU itself can make agreements within them, so that makes also air law. And there are resolutions and conditions drawn up by private bodies. And what are these private bodies? Airlines make associations and they make their own resolutions, thinking that certain things have to be, has to be agreed, and it should be spread. And this private body, which we will also talk about later, is International Airlines Association, Air Transport Associations, called IATA. And there are also contracts between airlines, code share. So that's code share is what happens when you bought a ticket from Air India and you're actually taking the flight of KLM. So in order to make this setting possible, you need to have contracts between airlines. And airlines have contracts with passengers like us. And when you're buying ticket, that is monetary contract. And air navigation services providers or airport management are also making their own agreements for the use of facilities and other things. And these are what makes air law. So as you can see, not only about the topic, so air law itself has a lot of topics that has to be discussed, but not only that, we have a lot of sources that we can call air law. So you can already feel that there are a lot which might trigger your future, I don't know, this research curiosity. So there are a lot to discuss in air law generally using these sources. And whoops, let me come back. Air law is important and interesting. And according to my PhD thesis supervisor and also the past director, well, not past, the emeritus professor of Institute of Air and Space Law in Leiden, in his book was saying that aviation is still developing and it involves a lot of stakeholders in larger circles, and which it requires specialized knowledge even for basic matters, because we have this thing called air law. And how is it working is just different from any other mode of transport. And like I said earlier, aviation is very technical and special and complex. So we need someone who understands this. And air law or aviation is very intertwined with other sectors' law. And we can talk about already the general principle of international law was used and is a source of air law. Public international law, therefore, is intertwined with air law. And then it has aspects of constitutional law, competition law, European Union law, which is regional law, and administrative law and criminal law and environmental law. So you can see that actually because aviation is so close to our lives, it is involving a lot of different laws outside air law itself, or the sector of aviation itself. And aviation is developing, as mentioned earlier, is very quickly, and then the law is also changing rather quickly. And we can talk about cyberspace law or cybersecurity, where people can actually hack the aircraft, perhaps the system of the aircraft. And then aviation already has its regulatory framework for cyber law or cybersecurity. And then that is also about use of personal records, which is passenger name records, and we are already talking about the global protection of data regimes. So aviation is already discussing such a topic. And aviation is not only public, although I discussed a lot of public aspects of it, but it's also about private. So we all studied law, so we know what it is. But public air law means it's about the interactions between states or state and international organizations such as ICAO, or we also have interactions among international organizations as well, like UN might speak to ICAO, for instance. So these are actually part of public air law, whereas private air law is financing of aircraft. So when an airline has to operate an aircraft, they have to buy it or they have to finance it. So that is part of the private air law sector. And you have contractual and non-contractual relationships between private parties, like what? Airlines, passengers, cargo, forwarders, there was a typo here, and airports, ground handling services, and lessors and lessees of aircraft, who's financing the aircraft. So indeed, you can see that it's important and interesting, and also very broad. And then because it is very broad, we have a lot of stakeholders in aviation. For instance, international organizations is, ICAO, so-called, is actually a big part of the aviation sector itself. And we have individuals, not only passengers like us, but who are also working in the aviation, and also air lawyers like us. So, and pilots and air traffic controller who are actually operating the aircraft and operating the aviation itself. Is it okay? I heard some noise so somebody's microphone was maybe on. And we also have organizations, airports, ground handling services providers, and air navigation services providers, like who's providing air traffic control, so controllers in the tower. And we also have private bodies like international air transport associations, like we said, IATA. And here IATA, by IATA, I mean that it has private airlines members, over 290 members. So a lot of airlines in the world are actually part of this association, so that they are talking about the benefits and then development of these airlines, but also about the safety of aviation generally. And then we just passed a little bit, but then the International Civil Aviation Organization also has state members, that is 193. So except only a few, or one or two countries, actually the entire world is part of this society. So it's one of the most cooperative industry sector, so to say, to make it very safe and to make it also very uniform. And then we also earlier talked about Chicago Convention, that is cornerstone of air law. And we call it Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation of 1944, so-called, just easily call it Chicago Convention. And then that's the constitution, so-called, of ICAO, because the Chicago Convention is talking about we need to have this international organization for the harmonized and uniformly regulated industry to make it safe, harmonized, and environmentally friendly, and then just friendly to each other. And we indeed just talked about the number of member states, 193. And then Chicago Convention, it has important principles that is used in the aviation, also values that are very important to the civil aviation society. So now we discuss about the principles in the Chicago Convention. Chicago Convention is applicable to international civil aviation only. So it's not about domestic flights, it's internationally only used. However, we also need to think about members of Chicago Convention have obligations to do certain things under the convention, which also might mean that your domestic law has to be also in compliance with this multilateral convention. So although Chicago Convention itself is only for international civil aviation, if it is implemented within the national law, it also might mean that domestic civil aviation might also be governed by Chicago Convention in a factual manner. And what's also important is, as the title of the convention initially was suggesting, it is applicable to civil aviation only and civil aircraft only, which means that customs flight or any governmental flight, which is called state flight, state aircraft, or military aircraft, is not governed by Chicago Convention. But that is also up to indirectly, it's up to the member states of ICAO if to indirectly govern their aviation activities, including military aviation, according to the Chicago Convention. And then another principle that Chicago Convention is holding towards International Civil Aviation Society is cooperation on a basic equality basis. So we as a member state or the world has to cooperate, of course, peacefully, and also according to and then also equally. So you're not really favoring the same, and we just cooperate peacefully. And it also talks about territorial jurisdiction, including sovereignty. And it also recognizes the scheduled and non-scheduled air services. Scheduled as in for seasonal, you have certain scheduled flight, which is flying, for instance, Monday to Wednesday every day, every week, within the certain period of your life. I have this annotation request. I think I'll just stop it. Yes. And then we also talk about non-scheduled, which is falling outside these scheduled flights. And we also, Chicago Convention is talking about how aviation has to be safe and how aviation has to be secure from threats. And then it also talks about the notion of protection of the environment. And it also talks about the role of ICAO, this international organization, in terms of dispute settlement. And then how contracting states are not agreeing to solve the problem through ICAO, or if it is falling outside the scope of ICAO's power, so to say, then the states or organizations can bring the case to the International Court of Justice. So these are actually all written in the Chicago Convention. And then now we are getting into details about safety and security. Is my aircraft, is my flight safe and secure? That is one might ask always. And then in order to discuss how safe and how secure your flight could be, we have to talk about what safety and security actually means in aviation. And then safety means protection against malfunction, errors, or other conditions that cause harms or hazard that are potentially inherent with the operation of the aircraft. So it is coming internally. It's coming from the internal sector of the aviation, from the machine itself, or people who are working within the aviation sector. And on the other hand, security means man-made intentional harm. So it's when safety is threatened by man-made international harm that means security. So armed attack like terrorist attack or acts of unlawful interferences like terrorism, like we think about, these are also all part of security. And also sometimes security means the flow and then facilitation of the aircraft. Sometimes you feel that the security counter or check-in counter at the airport is just way too long, and then all of a sudden they open a new counter at the airport so that your line or your queue would get very short. So that is actually part of security, and then what security personnel within the airport, for instance, would do. So we can actually see that a lot of safety and security aspects are inherited within the aviation, also at the airport, and then in the operation of aircraft itself. And is the aviation safe and secure? Oops. I would say it is, and then that is because Chicago Convention of 1944 has its technical annexes, 19 annexes discussing and regulating safety and security standards. So every member states are actually obliged to implement these technical standards into their legal system, domestic legal system, although they can file differences later, which is also in the Chicago Convention. Legally speaking or practically speaking, you have to comply with certain standards in order to be able to fly to another country, because then you have the common standards, and then we are crossing the border really quickly with aircraft, like we discussed. So even within aviation, they have an ICAO, they have Universal Safety Oversight Audit Program, where you can see the on the right side of this little circles, which talk about what has to be established and then what has to be implemented. So these are actually all the tools. You can see that you need to, as a member state, you have to establish legislations, and you have to have you need to have regulations, specific operation, technical and operating regulations. and also state systems and functions, and then also qualified technical personnel. So members of individuals are very important here. And you need to have tools. And you also have to implement licensing, certifications, authorizations, and also surveillance. The slides were moving itself, yes. And then also, resolution of safety issues. So you need to actually have all of these. And then I said aviation is safe and secure. Why is that? You can also see that, throughout the year, the number of accidents were actually very slowing down worldwide. So we have actually less than 100 accidents per year. Although the best is not to have accidents at all, but still, it's a very low number. And you can also see that the drastic decrease in fatal accidents compared to 2010 and 2020. And of course, this is because of COVID as well, because we couldn't have so many flights. But still, if you see the ratio of departures and then also the number of fatal accidents and accident rates, you can see that actually is extremely low. So that means, your flight is actually generally safe. So it's very easy to say at this moment. And then we now talk about, okay, I know that my flight is safe, so that's good to know. But my flight is delayed and I lost my baggage. Is there anything the air law can do here, or air law does air law does to help me? And yes, we do have it. Worldwide, we have Montreal Convention about the compensations, damages, and injuries that you might experience as a passenger. I mean, you can claim for damages, and the compensation that you would get is maximum amount of 7,000 US dollars. And for damaged bags and lost bags and luggages, you can actually ask for the compensation of this written number here, and also for delay as well. However, you can rely on this regulation, this convention, only if it is implemented into your domestic law. There was a little typo here as well, my apologies. And weather issues or safety security concerns made the delay of the aircraft or political unrest. So this is outside the control of the airlines, or strikes of who are of work, people who are working in the aviation. So for instance, what is happening in the Netherlands currently, or in a lot of European states, is that people are lacking ground handlers in the Dutch airport, the Netherlands airports, are actually striking because they don't have enough number of people who can do the work properly and safely. And they're very underpaid that they think that they're just now on strike. And if your flight is delayed because of that reason, according to Montreal Convention, perhaps you're not covered. But within Europe, we are talking about EU Regulation 261. That is another regime that is applicable within Europe, or flights that are coming from Europe or that are coming into Europe. That is about delaying and cancellation. Yeah, if the delay and cancellation is also within the control of airlines, then it says, airlines have to compensate. So basically, these air law has this regime to protect passengers who are rather weaker party in terms of the amount of technical expertise, in terms of about flying, for instance, or the imbalance in the information, because you would never know without these protection that you could actually ask for the delay, and you have to rely on the contractual relationship with the airlines otherwise. But then air law is actually protecting all these abuse of power. And we just discussed EU Regulation 261 about passenger protection. I got this little slides or little chart from online that is helping passengers to get the compensation using EU 261 regulation. That it says if your flight is under for distance of 1,500 kilometers, then you can get the compensation of 250 euros. And if it is more than 3,500 kilometers, in and out of the European Union, then you can get the compensation of 600 euros plus your flight reimbursed or rescheduled already. So this is actually big protection within the aviation that the law is providing. So you can already see that the role of law is actually bigger than what you might expect. And you're actually experiencing these protections, although, yeah, you're not realizing. So we just discussed the passenger protection, and then now we talk about, yeah, unruly passengers. Someone acts aggressively in the plane. And here I made a little video, which we can maybe see here. Whoops, sorry, I was a little bit loud. Can you hear the sound as well? Or can you see the video that I'm sharing here?
Yes, ma'am, we can able to see the video, but it's not playing.
Okay. Yeah, that's because maybe I didn't play. Okay.
Okay.
No, let me try. This is not a long video, just the 4 minutes about, yeah. Okay. I think the best is if I use my own account. Wait a second. So that you don't have to watch the ads yourself. Yes. Okay. I resume. Can you see the video now? It's not played yet.
Yes, ma'am, I can see. Flight.
Super. Yeah. So let's watch this for 2 minutes so that you can, maybe if you'd like to, you can drink some water as well for 2 minutes. I'll give you this little break. Okay. Am I audible now back?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we just saw the, yeah,
video wasn't audible, but we could able to
video.
understand.
Is it better? Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can. I mean,
Yeah.
not yours. The video you played.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't able to see the. I mean, hear the audio.
Oh, you couldn't see the video. Is that what you're saying? Or
No, I can able to see the video, but not the audio. We couldn't able to hear the audio.
oh, really? No, I'll
Yeah.
just share this link actually in the chat then.
Sure.
Oh, that's too bad because the video itself was actually very fun. In the chat. So this video was is actually talking about what unruly passenger can mean. So it is about people who smoke in the aircraft, or who are acting aggressively in the aircraft, or doing something that is not allowed, or not following the orders or instructions of flight attendants. So we call these people a unruly passenger in aviation. And what do we do with these people? And for instance, we can also think about people who are not wearing masks on flight, although it is entrusted, so that these people also become part of unruly passenger. And for that, we have Convention on Offenses and certain other acts committed on board the aircraft, which is so-called Tokyo Convention, and which came into force in 1963. And now it's also, the law has changed and then amended by this protocol called Montreal Protocol in 2013. And in such a thing about like someone who's aggressive and unruly within a craft, is actually, it says the acts, or no, it has to be dealt according to penal law. That's what the convention says. So at least or a government would know that you have to do it if you're party to Tokyo Convention. And it also talks about aircraft commander's power to restrain or put the person in custody. And it also talks about aircraft commander or flight attendant to impose reasonable measures to offenders. And then it's also talking about crew members, flight attendants that can assist, or that is required to assist the aircraft commander, who must be in cockpit to operate the aircraft. And once they are authorized by the commander. And sometimes passengers might be there to assist the restraining offenders, because the flight attendant might need the help. And it is also talking about the disembarking, or letting the person leave the aircraft at the nearest airport, and also to deliver this person to the custody of the national competent authority, and also sharing information evidences. And it also talks about another state that is having this offenders being delivered, about like accepting this disembarkation and then accepting this person. But the Tokyo Convention doesn't talk about persecution. It's talking about handling the person to the authority, but not about persecution, which we can already feel, it might be an issue already. Because what if the country, although the offender is such a big and dangerous person, and according to the national law or international law or law of other states, the person is eligible to persecution, but still another state just doesn't do that. That's also possible. So this is already a legal loophole, as we call. And Tokyo Convention doesn't also talk about investigations, what has to be done in terms of evidences as well. So it's also depending on the national law. But at least we know that there is international convention that discuss this thing, which you might be interested in doing further research on. And we also think about terrorism in the air, because we talked about secure aviation. And there we also have law about hijacking and also sabotaging. And the Hague Convention of 1970 is talking about it's making or announcing in law that hijacking is an international crime. And why did they come up with this law? Because although this person, there was a little bit of glitch here. Although it is not discussed or not properly handled by Tokyo Convention. Tokyo Convention just didn't stop hijacking, unfortunately. And we also talk about, what if One is hijacking aircraft for the political reason, and then they're playing their role as an asylum, then without certain law that they just are generally accepted to by another state that is politically having different ideas or ideologies. So what Hague Convention tried to do was making hijacking an international crime so that people just cannot seek the political asylum as granted, but then it still doesn't talk about universal jurisdiction. But it talks about international cooperation. In order to stop this international crime and to make the world peaceful, party to Hague Convention has to cooperate internationally. And that is, we can already see that this is actually part of the international law that we have learned or we're currently learning. And there is another form of terrorism, which is sabotaging the aircraft. And then that is handled by Montreal Protocol 1971, because you can already see that air law is developing as the prior law didn't really help decreasing the number of accidents or certain events. So that's why we have Montreal Convention, because hijacking was recognized and punishable by Hague Convention. But then sabotage, which is different type of, which is kind of abusing or controlling the power to go to another place, or which is, it's different type of terrorism, and that is not handled by Hague Convention. So Montreal Convention is talking about what are the acts that are falling under Montreal Convention and what can be considered sabotage. And it's about destruction or damaging the aircraft. And it's also talking about damaging the facilities, because it's a big part of the aviation, or communicating false information. And it is making all these things, which is not only hijacking. Hijacking is taking the control to go to another place. And then sabotaging is damaging the facilities. It also makes additional thing as an international crime. And about persecution and extradition, countries can choose either of both, but still, we have to think about whether it is properly handled or not. And then we are now experiencing new threats. And then, using civil aircraft as a weapon, we can think of 9/11 event in the United States. And then we can use aircraft spreading biological and chemical nuclear substances and all other things. So aviation society or aviation community has made new law or new international convention that in order to reflect all these new threats, and which is called Beijing Convention 2010. And it also talks about, you can see that in the third point under Beijing Convention, that what is falling under the scope of Beijing Convention. I'll just not read it out. I'll pass the slides to you later, so you don't have to make notes. But then you can see that actually law is evolving, and then it is very specialized form of evolving, because the reality is actually rather quickly reflected in new law. And then now we have to talk about if aviation is clean. By cleaning, we mean, is it not noisy? And what is its impact on the local air quality? And what about the greenhouse gas emission, CO2 emission on the global climate? So by law, airports sometimes shut down during the night to decrease the noise or not to harm the residents around the airport, and also for local air quality. And also International Aviation Society has made carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation, which is talking about cap and trading. So only up to a certain point you can emit. And what is happening is, because this regulation or the scheme is not internationally fully binding, or there are some member states of ICAO who's not really in favor of it. So you can already see that although CORSIA, this scheme is called CORSIA, although these efforts are there, we still rely on airlines, which were organizations that are part of the stakeholders of aviation, or individuals. When you're buying, for instance, tickets from KLM airlines, sometimes they ask if you're paying a little bit more or if you're choosing certain flights, it is actually because of the type of the aircraft and because of the technology that is allowed, that your plane is actually reducing the amount of emission that might be traditionally emitted from the same type of flight route. So you can already see also that aviation is not only relying on the law or states, but also airlines, but also to passengers, because people then sometimes tend to choose these flights, if you know, just to help the environment and then to keep it sustainable. So you can also see that the environmental aspects are also discussed by air law, but I am not going to get into details because this is the purpose of this workshop, is just for you to know that these are aspects that are discussed, and you can maybe pursue your further research, for instance, about the role of this and the role of CORSIA in terms of international environmental law, which is another intertwined sector with air law. So, for instance, like I said, aviation is responsible for around 3% of global CO2 emissions. So the airport in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, is also promoting sustainable aviation by mentioning that we are aware and we would like to fly more greener and more sustainable. And then what the climate agreement means for aviation, because there was Paris Agreement in a few years back in 2000. And from 2020, airlines growth must be carbon neutral, meaning that they have to be offsetting. There should be something happening. And then the Netherlands, as a local government, was also delivering its effort or showing its effort by posting that they're aware of these, and then they're making the action plans to make the aviation more greener, awareing that aviation is making big part of carbon emission in the world environment. And then, sustainability again mentioned as Schiphol. And then airlines are also making effort as an organization. So you can see that this is also the effort that is evident. And then we are also talking about flying on biofuel, which is, and then this might be good because we are worried about the raising fuel cost earlier in the welcoming addresses. And then there's an electric flight, which is not really currently so much used, but then, it's a possibility. And then the international, the organization IATA was also talking about aviation environment. IATA is actually a big force that is running the entire development of aviation as well. And so they are aware, and airlines are aware of it. And then they're also making their actions using this form of associations, which is a bigger power. And here is another example from 2019, so it's some time ago, about flying responsibly. So this is not only about, this is indeed about like people choosing your flight responsibly, using specific airlines perhaps, like that is making less of carbon emission, and then to invest or to flying with airlines that are investing more for carbon offsetting schemes. So on the website, I think you can already check, because KLM was the world's first airline that was really insisting that it's important, like flying responsibly is very important. So we are towards the end of the session, and I think I'm making just on time. So like you see that, you can see that throughout the workshop and earlier contents, you can see that ICAO was never alone, because it has member states, it has us flying passengers, and it has airlines that is really aware of the changes, and also other international organizations like IATA or UN, for instance. And then indeed that is so many stakeholders that is involved and that is really aware of problems, and then that is trying to solve the issue by making new laws or trying to suggest that new law has to be there. And you can also feel that it really needs specialized knowledge for that resolution of all these problems, because you can see that a lot of issues are actually dealt specifically by not only environmental law, for instance, with this CORSIA scheme, which is specific for aviation as an instance. And then aviation safety is globally standardized. So that is very specialized area as well. So you see that you have to know aviation, you have to know air law in order to solve these problems, which is very special and peculiar. And yeah, indeed, air law and aviation is trying to quickly adjust its form and contents according to technical developments. So we can think of machine learning already or use of data, because a lot of accident data is actually discussed using or solved or analyzed during machine learning. So we can think about what we can do with air law. And that was the end of the workshop. And if you have any questions, please feel free to tell me what it is. And then thank you very much. That was the end of the talk.
Thank you so much, madam, for this valuable lecture, which enlightened our knowledge in the field of air law, its objectives, its basics, like how it operates in India with international instruments governing, and everything what you covered is worth noting. And I would really like to thank you for that. And now any questions to the esteemed resource person can be raised in the chat box. And thank you. I now pass on the baton to the student coordinator, who is equally inspiring as he is enthusiastic. Over to you, Alex.
Thank you, Dhanasili. Once again, thank you, ma'am, for that insightful lecture. And with your consent, may I keep the floor open for the participants to ask questions?
Yes, please.
Thank you, ma'am. So participants, if in case you have any questions, you can put it on the chat box and I'll read it out and ma'am will answer it for you all. So the first question that we have is, what happens if you commit a crime on a plane and whose jurisdiction will it fall under?
That's a good question. We already discussed Tokyo Convention about unruly passenger. So as a lawyer, we need to think about what is a crime. Has what you've done really making a crime? I think that is something that we have to think of to begin with. And then which jurisdiction is it? I think that has to be determined by Tokyo Convention. So it is giving 3 choices of jurisdiction. One is about where the aircraft is flying. And also it depends on which route you're flying and when you're committing the crime. So if you're complying with all these things, I think I prepared also one little slide about security. I'll see if I can show you this. Yeah, so it is about the country of registration of the aircraft, where the aircraft is registered, and then where the passenger is delivered. So the third state in between, because we talked about the disembarkation. So these are actually 2 distinctive jurisdictions where we can say that, these are 2 jurisdictions. But please look into Tokyo Convention because it tells you, and then it talks about legal lacuna, why these jurisdictions sometimes just do not work.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have another question. So that is, can a passenger fly an aircraft if something unforeseen happens to the pilot? Will he be liable for his act?
That's a very good question. Well, in order, and that has actually happened. Have you ever watched this news online about this passenger who thankfully had a license, but for a certain type of aircraft, and then who could fly according to the instruction from the air traffic control? And I would say it's a very difficult to say because, but no, without the prior permission from the prior permission, as in if you're in talk with the air traffic controller, and if the propose is just to survive, I wouldn't say that one is liable. But that's different when the pilot in command is still sane or conscious in the aircraft. But it's very unlikely also that such a situation would happen because we have backup pilots. And then when you're actually flying the intercontinental flight, then actually you have more than a couple of pilots that can, that can operate the aircraft, but even more, like 3 couples, for instance. So in that case, it's very unlikely. So maybe you shouldn't worry about it.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have yet another question. So that is, assume my flight has been hijacked. Is it okay for me to kill the hijacker with an intention to save the entire population in the aircraft?
I think that is also about Tokyo Convention itself, right? So your assistance, no, this might be outside the scope of air law itself. Because and then you also have to think about if you're unruly, if you're considered unruly, according to the aircraft commander, who have the power to protect the safety and good orders within the aircraft. And if according to the person's standards or by law, you're also not unruly. Because although you might say at a court, it happens also often, that you say, yeah, I did it to protect my sister and brother. And if your action is too excessive, you get punished because you're not reasonable. So I think that is also about if the situation was really reasonable for you to kill the person or not. But I would say that this is also indeed the area where a short answer wouldn't give you any solution, but also where you can also discuss the intertwined area of criminal law and air law.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question on the chat box from Lavanya M. It is,
Yes.
aircraft emissions kill many people. Who is liable?
Depending on how many, I think it's also about the damage, actually, how you can practically visualize and prove the evidence. And if it is very clear that airlines or the specific emission from the airlines or the aircraft operated is killing people, then I would say no, there's no law in the air law sector. So this is something that you can discuss. I think that is more proper answer. And I would say, who is liable? I think that discussion starts only if you can prove that it's the carbon emission that killed many people, and only then we can discuss who's liable for that.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is also a very similar question. It's from Nishant K. He asks, how much is the airline liable if I fall ill because of the unhygienic conditions in the aircraft?
This is very interesting. I think then we have to discuss about the condition of damage and injuries according to Montreal Convention that we earlier discussed. We have to talk about what is damage and injury. So is falling sick damage and injuries? There are case laws, and I think it's very difficult to also prove. And there hasn't been, as far as I know, falling sick because of the unhygienic conditions of one person is very difficult to prove that it's because of the condition, one, to begin with. And then secondly, there has been cases, I think, no, it took some time for people to prove that psychological damages out of an accident or incident can be covered by Montreal Convention. So I think this requires further discussion, and I would not say that it's currently falling under the scope of damages or injuries caused by the aircraft or the flight itself.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question from Farita Nisha, Tax Department. She asked, in recent news, it was reported that the air conditioner was not working and passengers were suffering. What is the remedy? What are the different rights a passenger possesses?
I think this is actually very private and contractual relationship that you are expecting, because what the airline is supposed to do is transporting you from one place to another. in a very safe manner? And does it include you to be happy and then to be extremely comfort? I think it's a bit difficult also to prove that your contract, this is just my personal view. So I think it's very difficult to prove. And I am also indeed aware of such a problem because it has happened multiple times also in South Korea, where I am originally from. And as far as I understood, it's such a common problem. And I never know that who's compensated for that matter.
Thank you, ma'am. So the last question is from Fayaz Ahmed. He asks, who controls airspace over oceans?
This is something that we didn't actually discuss today. It's about high seas mostly, where there is no sovereignty and there is no member state, because territorial jurisdiction, we talked about territorial jurisdiction, that you can have control over the airspace over your territory only. But then if the ocean is part of your territory, yeah, to a certain distance, it is, according to international law, it is your jurisdiction, right? I think the issue is happening at the high seas, and Article 12 of the Chicago Convention is saying that rules of the air is applicable. So who's controlling is a difficult question. I think they have different sector of air traffic control. This is a very technical matter. So according to that boundaries that is in existence, actually there is a flight map to show us that who's in control of this. Those are people. But then if we talk about the legal governing bodies of high seas, I would say that Chicago Convention is overruling.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for so patiently answering all those questions. I now invite Abhishek Castro, final year student, Business Law Department, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Abhishek, are you there? Abhishek Castro? I think he's Harita?
He is in the meet only.
Okay.
He's not able to, I mean, his
Okay.
audio is not
Okay.
coming.
Harita, you'll deliver the vote of thanks?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, sure. I think I was in between, I couldn't join, so
Okay.
I'm doing it as it is. Anyway, I think at the outset, I must thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, because it is he who is giving us all opportunities to do all such academic activities. And then to our registrar, today I think he is in some other meetings, many meetings. That's why otherwise he should have delivered the vote of thanks, I think. Thank you to Dr. Ranjit sir. And above all, I think
our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, is.
Yes, sir. Vice Chancellor has joined just now.
Thank you
Yes,
very much, sir, for joining us. It's our
Yes,
honor.
sir. Thank you, sir. We are actually delivering the thanks to you only. And above all, I think I must thank our technical team, because today it is a webinar from abroad. So everything should be smooth, and we could hear our ma'am special speaker. So it was going very smoothly. So in that regard, above all, I am thanking my technical team for the full technical support which they have done, and the comparer Dhanasili and Alex Abraham. And I think if I've left out any students, I'm sorry, but all the PG students and the PG department teachers who have worked very hard for making this possible. I think registrar is also joining us, Dr. Ranjit sir. I could see him there. Yes, sir. Thank you very much for doing all the, to permitting us. That's the first thing which I have to thank everyone. And I should thank our dean who joined us and gave the felicitation address, and our head of the department, International Law, Ma'am Bhuneshwari ma'am, who also joined and made it a point that she has given a very brief intro about air law or the importance of this subject, because she was able to give the start for the topic, so it went on good. And I must thank, or it's our bounden duty from all in Ambedkar Law University, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Registrar, and all the students and teachers who are present here, I would like to thank our special speaker, Jinyoung Choi ma'am, for having joined us and given us a very good input about the subject. I think our students would have greatly benefited out of it. Ma'am, am I audible to you? Hope I am audible to you. Yes, ma'am. So it's a great input. I think I should say on behalf of the university, not only thanks, we would like to continue this, I would say, if, I don't know, depending upon the time and availability of you, ma'am, it would be better if you could give us your inputs to our university students as far as possible, because it would be a very good venture where our students get an opportunity to hear from your side, because your expertise will help us. So thank you very much for joining us and giving us that input. Hope to have future events too. So that's what it's my wish, and all who are here. Definitely, we have to thank our PG director, Kumdaratna ma'am, because it is she who arranged this, and with the help of the students who are studying abroad. So I'm not saying everybody's name, but I thank all the students who are our alumni who are studying abroad. It is they who had made this as possible, because an international webinar like this has been possible because of our alumni who are there. So it's a proud moment for all of us in the university. Definitely, it is an inspiration to all the students who are now presently pursuing there and who are in the meeting. Hope it has started a new beginning, so that tomorrow we'll have, tomorrow in the sense, in future we'll have a very good acquaintance with the foreign universities, and I think we are about to enter an MOU, etc. So that is going to take us along forward. I thank each one of the students, the student volunteers, as well as the teachers and all who are present here, because it is they who has made it possible. Actually, I have to apologize myself. In between, I was in travel, so I couldn't hear fully. But definitely, I will be hearing it again from the YouTube. So, so no issues. We have that recorded video. So I confess that I was not there in between, I should say. But anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity, Kumda ma'am, because I just could join and propose the vote of thanks. Thank you very much on behalf of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Arita ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing the vote of thanks on behalf of me.
Thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. Thanks to Registrar.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for arranging this, and thank you, our guest speaker of this evening.
Yes, please, ma'am. Yeah. Jinyoung Choi, can you just unmute? Yeah. So
Yes.
thank you very much. And our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, is also here. And because of meeting and other things only, we couldn't join immediately. Thank you very much for sparing your time. On behalf of the institution, I thank you very, very much. And thank you, Deepika Jaikodi, for, introducing us to Jinyoung Choi. And also thank you, Jinyoung Choi, for being the advisory committee of the Journal of the Department of Business Law. Thank you one and all for participating in this event.
Thank you very much for all the invitations and also nice words welcoming me and then introducing me. And then